Perfect. Wow, beautiful. So officially 8 p.m., 2 p.m. in Florida. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with a true pioneer in the world of plant-based fitness and nutrition, Geoff Palmer. Hi, Geoff.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, Geoff, at a small introduction I prepared for you and for my audience, at 62 years young and a dedicated vegan for over 40 years, Geoff is living proof of the power of a plant-based diet and lifestyle. He is not only a natural bodybuilding and natural physique master champion, but also the founder of Clean Machine Plant-Based Fitness Nutrition, an award-winning supplement brand dedicated to plant-based health and performance. Geoff's impact goes beyond fitness. He is an author and a national lecturer and patent holder, and he even made history by creating the world's first 100% vegan bodybuilding competition. Recognized as one of the top 100 most influential vegans by Plant-Based News, his contribution to the movement are 100% scientific-based and truly inspiring. Beyond that, he's committed to giving back, with Clean Machine donating a portion of its sales to Food for Life Global, helping to feed over 10,000 hungry children worldwide. Today, we're diving into some of the biggest questions around protein, plant-based nutrition, and fitness, straight from someone who's not just studied it, but also lived it. Geoff, welcome to your presentation and the interview and the Q&A that will follow. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the guests for attending. I hope I give you some great information that you can share with those you love to help them as well. All right, so this is me on stage. I competed in my first competition at 50 years young and won my first competition at 50 years of age. I competed all the way up until I was 57 and became a natural bodybuilding and natural physique champion. And like was mentioned before, plant-based news. Hang on just a second. A little technical there. Okay. Shows me as the number 40 top most influential vegans in the world. Big honor. Yes, I have been, this is me in my bodybuilding championship. I am 62 years of age now, 40 years vegan, 100% drug-free, so that is completely natural, and a two-time champion. You know, some people say, hey, wait a minute, you must have got that because you were eating meat. And no, I've been vegan for 40 years. So every cell in my body has been replaced, most of them multiple times from plant-based sources. Then some people say, well, you probably always look like that. And well, no, this is me when I was 16. Yeah, I was a twig. So no, that's 100% body built by plants and obviously exercise. So, you know, most people are asking, where do you get your protein? Obviously, the title of this lecture. And it's a funny question to me after being vegan for 40 years, because I am constantly reading the research, when actually all essential amino acids that build most of the proteins in our body actually come from plants, and only from plants. This is actually how they're made. Plants take in sunlight and use that sunlight for energy to grab carbon dioxide out of the air, nitrogen from the soil or the air, and then combine that with water to form carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, which we commonly know as amino acids. So all of the essential amino acids that make proteins come from plants. Animals do not and cannot make them. It's impossible. That's actually why we call them essential amino acids, because it's essential for all animals to get them from outside of our body through our diet. So herbivore animals get them directly from the plants, and carnivore animals get them by eating an animal that has either eaten the plants directly or ate another animal that ate the plants. But all of the essential amino acids in every single cell of everybody are made from plants. So I get my essential amino acids exactly from where every other human being on this planet does, plants. Now, there are some microbes that can actually make essential amino acids as well. So we actually do get them from breaking down our gut bacteria and other forms of bacteria, but they don't play a large role in our nutritional needs. Okay, so most people will say, oh, whey protein, right? That's the industry standard for bodybuilders. You got to get your protein from whey. Well, when we look at the research, you can see the first study on top said 8 weeks of whey or rice protein, and they found absolutely no difference in the amount of muscle or strength gained by consuming similar amounts of whey or rice protein. So the researchers said, well, maybe that's just rice protein. Maybe what about some of the other plant proteins? Let's take a look at pea proteins. So they looked at pea proteins in the second study on the slide there, and they actually did find a slight difference. Yeah, pea protein was actually more effective at building muscle than whey protein. And you're like, what? Pea protein actually increased muscle more than whey? How's that possible? Okay, so let's take a look at the larger studies, because these were smaller studies, what they call interventional trials. And this was a very large study, epidemiological study. So 40,000 people in the study, and they looked at, hey, let's look at all of their diets and see if the diet protein source left more muscle than others. And as you can see in the middle of the screen there were no associations between where that protein came from and the amount of musculoskeletal muscle. Okay, now they did find that if you didn't eat sufficient amounts of protein, you did actually have lower amounts of muscle. So consuming protein is important for building muscle, but the source of protein, not so much. So the next question then would be, okay, in the pea and rice study, they used 48 grams of protein in the rice study and 50 grams in the pea protein study. So why did they use so much protein? And is too much protein actually bad for you? That was a big question, because this study was shocking. This study was one of the first to actually separate out the diets of high protein intakes from animals versus high protein intakes from plants. So when they looked at those over a period of time, all the way up to 65 years of age, they looked at those in the highest quartile, those consuming about 200 grams or more of animal protein per day. And then they looked at those consuming about that same amount of protein in plants. In the animal-based protein group, they had a 75% increased risk of dying prematurely. 75%. That's horrible. They had a 400% increased risk of cancer and a 5 times increase of diabetes in the animal-based group. But my apologies. Turn off my phone. Should have done that before. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. And a 500% increase in diabetes. At the same study said these associations were either abolished or attenuated if the proteins were plant-derived. Now, this says it's not about the amount of protein, it's where that protein is coming from. So why is there such a huge health difference by eating a lot of animal protein versus eating a lot of plant protein where there were no negative health outcomes? Well, it's multifaceted. When we consume animal proteins, we get higher methionine. We get a higher increase of IGF-1, which stimulates the growth of cancer cells, which is why we see that 400 increase in cancer rates. Heme iron oxidizes in the human body. Heme iron only comes from animal products. It's not found in the plant kingdom at all. And heme iron, we now know, causes what's called ferroptosis. Ferro meaning iron, and optosis meaning cell death. So this iron oxidizing can cause cell death directly to muscle cells or even beta cells, which produce our insulin. We now know that from a huge study, 3 million, almost 3 million people in it, the study, 20 different countries observed, and they found a dose linear response. To the more animal proteins you eat, the higher rates of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and even type 1 diabetes, because the ferroptosis is attacking beta cells in the pancreas that actually produce insulin. So by damaging those beta cells, you can actually shut down your own body's production of insulin, leaving you type 1 diabetic, which is meaning you're going to be on insulin the rest of your life. So cholesterol and fat and TMAO, and I'm going to get to those in a second, but when we look at the different amino acid levels that are in proteins, you can see there's quite a difference between pea protein and animal protein, pea protein, or plant proteins and animal proteins. Now, this is important because we used to think, hey, wait a minute, some of these plant proteins are lower in things like methionine and leucine. And this must mean that animal proteins are better and that plant proteins are incomplete. We now know the exact opposite is true. Animal proteins have too much of these amino acids. Plants have the right amounts of amino acids. Okay, look on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see the study at the bottom. High methionine levels. Remember, animal proteins are higher in methionine generally than plant sources of protein, and fish and eggs being the highest source of methionine. Methionine is a growth promoter. So it stimulates our cells to grow. Well, as an adult, we have very low turnover because our body is efficient at recycling our proteins. So we don't need a whole lot of protein for repair and recovery. And if we get too much protein, we're overloading our cells with methionine. Methionine is telling the cells to grow and can actually stimulate cancer cells to metastasize, spread throughout the body, and kill people. So if you look at the study below, it says a review of methionine dependency of cancer and life extension. So they used to think, okay, you cut calories, you reduce your calories, and you can extend life in human beings. That's true. But they said, well, wait a minute, is it all calories or certain calories? So they isolated reducing carbs, reducing fats, or reducing protein, and it was the proteins. You didn't get life extension by reducing the carbs or fats. You did get life extension by reducing the protein intake. And they said, okay, is it all proteins or is it specific proteins? And it was animal proteins. And they said, well, is it animal proteins or is it a specific amino acid? And sure enough, they boiled it down to methionine. We now know in research and science that it's called the Hoffman effect, that every single cancer tested so far responds and is fed by methionine. So the more you eat animal products, the more you are feeding cancer cells to grow in the human body. You can actually take those cancer cells, put them in a petri dish, and eliminate the methionine, and 100% of those cancer cells will perish. Oncologists, doctors who work with cancer patients, are now putting people on a vegan diet. As you can see down below at the bottom of the screen on the left, in humans, vegan diets, which are actually low in methionine, can actually control cancer cell growth. That's why we're seeing that 400% increase with a high intake of animal proteins is in cancer because of this methionine effect. IGF-1, what is IGF-1? It stimulates grow, grow, grow. If our cells are saying no, 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 you can overstimulate a cell to grow, and a cell growing wildly is exactly a cancer cell. That's what a cancer cell is. It's one of our own cells that is growing uncontrollably. That's what cancer is. So when you look at IGF-1, we need a little bit for healthy repair and recovery of cells, but too much IGF-1 stimulation can do that. In vegans, both in men and women, we consume a lot more fiber. That fiber produces a binder that protects IGF-1 from stimulating the cells of cancer to grow. So once again, fiber is only in plant products. There is zero fiber in any animal product, and the fiber helps us control IGF-1 so it doesn't stimulate cancer cells to grow. Okay, here's the heme iron, plant iron. They used to say, hey, wait a minute, heme iron absorbs in the system so much faster, so it's better than plant iron. We now know the exact opposite is true. Heme iron absorbs too quickly into our system, and our liver actually has to produce a compound called hepcidin, which blocks that heme iron from getting into our blood because too much free iron will oxidize. Iron's a metal. What happens when you get it wet? It rusts. That same process happens inside. It's called heme iron oxidation. Then that oxidized iron can damage and destroy cells and wreak havoc all over the body. The brain, the heart, the kidneys, every cell it touches can be destructive. We now know that heme iron is both cytotoxic, means it damages the cells, and genotoxic, which means it can get inside of cells and damage our DNA. Now, the DNA tells the cell how to copy and make a new cell. If you've got a damaged DNA in there that is damaged by that heme iron, what is the cell going to do? It's going to reproduce bad copies of cells. That is the birth of cancer. Cancer is when a faulty cell continues to replicate or multiply. That's exactly what cancer is, and we now know that cancer is caused. So when your liver rightfully blocks all that heme iron from getting into our blood flow, what happens? That heme iron builds up in the digestive tract and starts to attack our colon. Colon cancer is now the #1 cancer killer of men in the United States. #1 cause of cancer deaths in the US of men under 50 in the US. It's because we're eating too much heme iron that can't get out of our system fast enough. Okay, so plants, right? This doesn't absorb as well. No, that's the body regulating how much heme iron is actually released into the system. This is absolutely the best way to do it. And the plants bind a very powerful antioxidant called phytate. I bet you some of you have heard that phytates are bad. Phytates prevent iron from absorbing. No, phytates can be broken off by our microbiome so that it regulates how much iron gets into our system. The plants and our microbiome have a beautiful dance of regulating and only breaking off enough phytate to release the iron that our body needs right in that moment. It's a beautiful balanced system. But what happens to that phytate, that phytic acid, commonly known as IP6? Well, IP6, as you can see in the second study at the bottom right-hand side, actually prevents cancer cells from forming and can kill the cancer cells if they develop. But even cooler, it can be absorbed into a cancer cell and fix and repair the gene and turn a cancer cell back into a normal, healthy, functioning cell. Now, there's no drug on the planet that can do this, yet beans and grains will do this for you every single day if you eat them. It's a beautiful thing. Now, pharmaceutical drug companies are targeting this pathway to try to replicate it and make a drug out of it, and you'll probably see that in the marketplace, but all they're doing is duplicating the exact pathway that phytic acid in plant iron does every day. All right, cholesterol. When I read this study, it was pretty interesting because when I shared it with people, they're like, what? That's true? Okay. Atherosclerosis, as you can see right here, atherosclerosis, whoops, let me go back. Atherosclerosis only affects herbivores. Atherosclerosis is the #1 cause of death of humans globally. Atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, to be exact. Okay. If only herbivores can get atherosclerosis, and humans, it's the #1 cause of death, what does that make humans? That's right. We have to be physiological herbivores. You can feed cholesterol and saturated fat to an omnivore animal, a true omnivore, not just a habitual one like many humans believe they are. A true physiological omnivore, like a bear, will never, ever get atherosclerosis, no matter how much cholesterol and saturated fat they take. They just don't get it. Carnivore animals don't get it. Omnivore animals don't get it. Only herbivores get atherosclerosis when they consume saturated fat and cholesterol from animals. In other words, every time you feed an animal product to an herbivore, they get atherosclerosis. Now, you can read the bottom of the half and said, well, is there some exceptions to this? And no, this study is first done back in the 1900s, and now, 1908 to be exact, and now it's been reproduced thousands of times in almost every single animal. It is produced in 100% of the animals tested. So people said, well, if that's the case, then 100% of people eating meat will have atherosclerosis. And that is exactly what this study showed. So they took cadavers from universities and hospitals all over the world and looked at 4,000 consecutive cadavers, and every single one of them had atherosclerosis to some degree in their body. Every single one, 100%. You can see on the left-hand side, it says age 15 to 19. It goes all the way up to 85. 100% of those consuming animal proteins, animal products, meat, dairy, fish, eggs, 100% of them had atherosclerosis forming in their body by the age of 15. So they looked at that even further and found atherosclerosis can start forming in our arteries as early as 6 to 9 years of age if you're consuming animal products. So this is really, really clear what our body is designed to do. And when we put only plants in our body, we can reverse atherosclerosis. We can make it go away in most people. Now, there are some people that have genetic dispositions, maybe 3 to 5% of the people. There are other exceptions that may occur too, but predominantly almost everyone can reverse the #1 cause of death by simply consuming a plant-exclusive diet. We know this, it's been published in the studies, but it's not just cholesterol. When you eat an animal product like meat, fish, eggs, dairy, they go into our digestive tract. As you can see the picture over on the left there, you consume meat, eggs, dairy, they go into our digestive tract, and our microbiome forms this compound called TMA. It's a big chemical name, I won't bore you with it. So what does it do? Well, TMA goes into our bloodstream and then into our liver and forms a compound called TMAO. Now, TMAO actually forces cholesterol into the endothelial lining. Now, that would be bad enough because that's not where it belongs. You do not want this to happen because this is actually how atherosclerotic plaques begin. But it gets worse. If you keep consuming the animal products, you keep producing TMA, and it prevents the body from getting that cholesterol out of the endothelial lining. So when you look at the graph below from the study. This is 24 hours after eating a animal-based meal. TMAO skyrockets in the bloodstream, goes up 600% almost. You look at in a vegan diet when they're only eating plants, zero formation of TMAO. This means even if you do have cholesterol, that TMAO is not there and is not forcing that cholesterol into the endothelial lining of your arteries, causing atherosclerotic plaques. This is the 1-2 punch. You're giving the body an oxidized, cooked form of cholesterol, which makes it worse for the body. You're introducing it to the body, and then that microbiome from digesting those animal proteins is forcing that into your arteries, causing the #1 cause of death on the planet. But it's not just forcing it into the arteries in your heart. This is a picture of people who died without Alzheimer's disease, and the bottom is those who died with Alzheimer's disease. You can see how it's clogging the arteries to the brain as well. And the brain needs a high amount of glucose and a high amount of oxygen to perform. If you close down the blood vessels, it's not getting what it needs, and you have dementia and Alzheimer's. And you can see in the study right there, 2022 study, animal-derived oxysterols. This is oxidized cooked cholesterol, because we cook most of our animal foods. Animal-derived oxysterols in the diet causing the development of Alzheimer's disease. We have these studies, but the doctors out there are not telling people what's causing their diet. They just tell you, oh, since you have that, use this drug. No, don't have it by changing your diet and lifestyle. Prevention is so much better than treating a disease. Preventing the disease is so much better. So that's my presentation. I know I covered a lot of science, and I realize some of that science may not be translatable, so I'll let Suzanne take over a little bit here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for such a clear and straight to the point presentation. I'm sure my audience could follow you mostly because some of the subject we talked about already, but you brought more science and different wordings, so it helps to anchor the subject because it's so important that it goes out there. I will say a couple of words in German now before turning to the question I've collected and before opening then to other questions. So I have to switch my brain now to German. Also, meine Lieben, falls ihr Fragen habt, behält die Fragen für den Schluss. Ich habe ein paar Fragen schon von ein paar von euch bekommen, die werde ich jetzt stellen. Auf Englisch, wenn es dann klappt mit der Zoom-Übersetzung, dann ist es super, sonst habt ihr tatsächlich wirklich auch wieder die Möglichkeit, die Aufzeichnung auf YouTube zu schauen für die etwa bessere Übersetzung von YouTube oder eben dann später, wenn ich fertig bin mit meiner Liste, die Fragen zu stellen. Ich kann sie auch dann auf Englisch übersetzen und wieder auf Deutsch. Dafür sind wir auch heute Abend da. Okay, then let's start with some question. You answered already a couple of questions I collected, so I will just scan through what I have. Yes, you spoke about it already, but I'd love to hear it in other words because lots of my patients, I had a lady yesterday who told me, oh, you know, Frau Gergely, I really believe what you tell me, but you know, when I'm sitting out there and looking and reading all the stuff I see on the internet and speaking to my friends, well, they say animal proteins are important for the human body. Would you like to just summarize a little bit again the answer so it gets into the brain at the right place?
Yes. So not only are animal proteins not important for the human body, they are detrimental to the human body. Animal proteins, as discussed in the PowerPoint, cause a rapid increase in TMAO, which leads to atherosclerotic plaques, which is the #1 cause of death. They lead to hypertension, the clogging of the arteries. Hypertension is the leading contributor to the global #1 cause of death on the planet. It's clear when we stop consuming the animal proteins that our arteries clear up, the damage to our liver and kidneys and heart improve, damage to our brain and dementia. A nice study showed that by consuming more plants, vegetables, fruits and vegetables, and exercising, you reduced dementia by 63%. So if you value your brain, which I do, especially as we're aging, why would you not want to put the things that support you from preventing getting dementia, Alzheimer's, heart attacks, strokes, and cancer? These are all the major diseases, and they have dramatically increased linearly with our increased consumption of animal proteins. There's no debate about this anymore, except in bro science circles on the internet.
Yeah, there are indeed people who can talk and who are very effective in the message they transmit and are very loud. So that's why we should be even louder and come out even more often with the truth, because, like, I always say there is no one truth, but for this part, there is one truth. So we just have to open our eyes and do the best we can. Another thing that I hear very often is that because we are animal proteins are better bioavailable than plant proteins. And maybe you can explain what bioavailability means?
Yeah, so when you eat a specific source of protein, how much of that in the form of amino acids gets broken down and pulled in from the digestive tract into the bloodstream? Okay, the main fallacy, the main misunderstanding here is that more is actually better. Okay, it's not. Having the right amount of protein is what's appropriate. So the FAO and WHO, World Health Organization, showed that by consuming about 60 grams of protein from any source is all of the protein that any human being needs for all functioning, even if you're active. And it doesn't matter what source of protein it is. So even if animal proteins are a little bit higher in their bioavailability, you can just simply eat more of the plant proteins. And since the plant proteins have polyphenols and fiber and antioxidants and all this good stuff, why not eat more? There's no harm in eating more plant proteins. How many of you would like to eat more foods you love? Yeah, I would. Yeah, why not? So bioavailability is meaningless because right now human beings are getting anywhere from 100 to 200% more protein than they need. So bioavailability of 3 to 5% more of bioavailable of animal proteins doesn't mean anything.
Perfect. Thank you. That was the next question I was going to ask you is because there are a lot of studies that were observational studies that were done to see how many proteins do people get with a SAD diet, like the normal Western diet. And I had the same number as you, like 100. It's difficult to get them under 100 grams per day. So there is absolutely no reason to worry about not getting enough protein. And lots of the plant-based physician doctors I am following and I've been studying under say also, well, if you go to a clinic or hospital, you'll never see someone who is hospitalized because he has too few protein in his body.
Yes, so in the scientific community, there is a term for protein deficiency. It's called kwashiorkor. How many of you have heard of kwashiorkor? You have, because you're you're in the medical field.
They
But
heard as well, but they don't
nobody's ever
remember.
heard of it because nobody gets it except unless you're just extremely deficient in overall nutrition, like starving people in Africa or something like that. Or we also see it in bulimics or anorexics, where they're just not consuming. So they actually said, well, this isn't really a disease state because it's just basically not getting enough calories. So they changed the name to calorie insufficient protein deficiency.
Yeah.
So in other words, you have to eat so little calories in order to not get your protein requirements, making it nearly impossible if you're eating sufficient calories to not get enough protein, regardless of what type of diet you're consuming. So I think this protein fear is nothing but a marketing scheme that the meat, dairy, and eggs industries have used to fear bait you into consuming more of their products. They get wealthy by you consuming more of their products. So how do they do that? They tell you, oh, you're not going to get enough protein. Put the fear of God in you. You got to eat more of our products. Thank you for eating our products. Now you get to go to the hospital and do all the diseases, heart attack, stroke, diabetes. But it's all right. Then the hospitals will keep you alive with drugs to keep you in the game and keep eating those animal products. So the pharmaceutical companies are getting rich off of you consuming the animal products. The hospitals are getting rich. The doctors are getting rich. The animal food companies are getting rich. Everybody is getting rich off of you staying sick and buying and eating more of their products. Thank you for making them, the pharmaceutical companies, the wealthiest multinational corporations in the world. I'm sure they're very happy for that.
I will just react to one comment and in German. So, falls ihr Fragen habt, macht das wie Susanne und Thomas, so dass ihr das nicht vergisst. Schreibt es gerne in den Kommentaren und dann nehme ich die Fragen dann am Schluss, so dass ihr sicher seid, dass ihr die Fragen eben nicht vergisst. I just said that if someone has a question, he can or she can write it in the commentary field, and I will take them at the end of my list and translate it so you can give your answer. Okay, so the next one. What would be the best natural plant-based protein sources for building muscles and optimizing performance?
The broad answer is all of them. But look, okay, if you're looking for a more concentrated form of protein in the animal kingdom, what is that? It's egg. Egg is probably the most dense nutrient, plant nutrient, animal protein source. Why? Because it's a compact thing that's going to grow into a chicken, right? A full bird. And that's what an egg is. Well, what are beans, nuts, grains, and seeds? They're compact, condensed nutrition that's going to grow into a tree or a plant, right? So they're concentrated forms. So beans, nuts, grains, seeds, any of those in the category are concentrated forms of protein. So you're going to get a little bit more protein, a little bit more concentrated nutrients from those sources if you're interested in that route.
Perfect, thank you. How does a plant-based diet impact endurance, strength, and recovery compared to a traditional diet with animal products? And before I let you answer, I will just tell about my personal experience because I am a sport addict, and I noticed without even before looking at the science behind it that when I switched to a plant-based diet, I could hike the biggest mountains, walk for hours, and on the next day I wouldn't have any sore muscles. It was just magic.
Okay, so let's take a look at what happens when you exercise. When you exercise, it's like an engine. And when you run an engine and you put your foot down on the accelerator, what happens? You get a lot of exhaust or waste. Same thing that happens with the machinery inside our body called muscles, and it produces waste. And one of those forms of waste is a thing called lactic acid. All right, so lactic acid, if you work out really hard, really fast, and you can't get the lactic acid out of your muscle, you'll feel a burning sensation, right? And that can actually damage muscle tissue. All right, so the body has to get that lactic acid out. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So the body will take lactic acid, excess lactic acid, and dump it directly right into our intestinal tract. Interesting. So why does it do that? Well, there's lactobacillus bacteria. They're the most common form of bacteria in our digestive tract, and they help break down this lactic acid. And what do they produce in return? They produce short-chain fatty acids. Well, one of them is called butyrate, and butyrate can go into the system and reduce inflammation. Full circle. Our body produces lactic acid from the workout, dumps it into and feeds our microbiome. Our microbiome says, thank you very much. Here's some short-chain fatty acids I produced for you for feeding me, and I'll reduce your inflammation inside. Now, those lactobacillic plantarum, there's a clue, feed on fiber otherwise. So the more fiber you intake, oh, wait a minute, where does fiber come? Only from plants and fungi. Mushrooms have really good sources of fiber too as well. Animals have zero fiber. So you're not getting that level of short-chain fatty acid production. Those short-chain fatty acids can turn into a really cool molecule called odd-chain fatty acids, C15, C17. These reduce inflammation even more than omega-3s and omega-6s in your body. And they're produced from our microbes munching on fiber and converting it into short-chain fatty acids, which later develop into odd-chain fatty acids and even further reduce the inflammation. You see how this beautiful circular dance of our body and our exercise, feeding our bacteria, eating the plants, feeding them, they're supporting us with all these amazing anti-inflammatory compounds to help us thrive and live longer and recover better for our athletes. They've seen this in soccer players and basketball players. This is why so many people, from pro athletes in football, baseball, basketball, all over the place, even swimmers, are getting faster recovery. They can get back in the game sooner and recover faster and quicker and have more endurance too as well. Those short-chain fatty acids can actually be used for energy too. So if you need backup energy, you're depleting your body of glycogen when you work out, when you train hard, when you're doing athletics or performance, and these short-chain fatty acids can be used as a backup source of fuel, making you last longer in the gym and run further in endurance sports, etc. So it's a beautiful cooperative system that if we just put the right things in, they take care of the rest.
Wow, I will have to re-listen to this one because you explained it so nicely how the circle closes, and thank you very much because that brings me a little bit further. Thank you. Is this also because, you know, like I hear lots of people telling me, oh, I know if I lose weight, I will reduce my blood pressure. And so I have to exercise more. So like, it doesn't really matter what I eat. I have to exercise more. How do you weigh, if I can say like this, the importance of the diet and exercise? Can you, or in other words, can you out-exercise a bad diet?
That's like saying, okay, I need to get somewhere really fast. I'll just put my foot on the gas pedal and get there faster. Well, if your hands aren't on the steering wheel, you're not going to get there fast at all. So is steering more important than the gas pedal? No, they work together. It's best when you hold on to the steering wheel and press the gas pedal, not one or the other. So over and over and over again, we see that fat loss is increased with exercise, but it's increased even more with a good diet. A good diet increases weight loss and improves health but it increases even more when you add exercise. So to this Taiwanese study was 4,000 people, 4,100 people in Taiwan, and they looked at how much plant-based diets they ate. So the ones eating almost entirely plant-based had a 40% less or decreased risk of dementia. When they added exercise to that, it went up to 63%.
Oh.
Now, when they took the plant-based diet away from them and just exercised, it was only 33%. So exercise, 33%, diet only, 40%, diet and exercise, 63%. Do you see how they work better together? It shouldn't be one or the other. It should always be both. That's why I focus on nutrition and exercise, because they're so complementary to each other.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, because we have you as a specialist of exercising and nutrition, for someone new to plant-based nutrition, fitness nutrition, because I have some of my clients who love to go to the fitness and build muscle. What are your top 3 practical tips to get started successfully?
Okay, so these are real simple because the 3 I use for everybody, which is frequency or consistency. 1, the body will respond best to what you do the most often. If you do it once in a while, it'll say, okay, I'll change a little bit. If you do it regularly, it says, okay, you're doing this more often, I'm going to start adapting the body and making some changes. That's where you get the real health benefits from consistency. Number 2 is intensity. So how much you put into it is how much you get out of it. You exercise with more intensity, like walking will help a little bit. Walking at a brisk pace, that'll help a little bit more. If you can, swimming or jogging or more intense exercise, you're going to see even more benefits. No, not everybody can do this. Start with where you do best and work your way up to be. And listen, intensity doesn't mean I have to lift 400 pounds, although I do bench 450 pounds. You don't have to do that, but that's where I get my intensity level from. What you need to do is find that level that is difficult, is strenuous for you, and get to that level safely and with some help so that you're doing it properly and not injuring yourself. But get to that level where it's hard for you. And the harder it is, the better you're going to get a response out of your body. So consistency, intensity, and the third is nutrient density. So when we look at our food, we can have nutrient poor foods, and then we have nutrient-rich foods. Dark greens, berries, these things are loaded with nutrition, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, polyphenols, fiber. That's densely packed nutrition. So I start my day out with 5 to 6 berry-type fruits: strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, mangoes, bananas. Mangoes and bananas are actually technically berries. Watermelon is a berry. I know this sounds weird, but these are actually technically berries. All right, so start out with those because they're rich in polyphenols that can help stimulate the body, feed your microbiome, and prime your digestion tract to be ready to take on nutrition. Plus, they protect the cells too, so whatever you're eating for the rest of the day. Then I load some dark greens in there. Dark greens and berries are the most nutrient-rich plants. I will be bringing duckweed back to market. Duckweed is lemna, which is a water plant that grows on the water. It is the most nutrient-rich plant we've ever seen in science so far. And it actually absorbs the bacteria that make B12, so you can get 100% of your B12 from a plant because it's actually pulling that B12 producing bacteria into its root system. It's floating along the water and pulls the bacteria into its root system, creates a little nodule for it to live, and the bacteria carries on a symbiotic relationship. That bacteria breaks down the minerals that are being absorbed in the water and allows the plant to feed off that. In return, the plant sends amino acids and glucose down into the bacteria so the bacteria can actually live right inside their root system. Now that's because it's a water plant floating around. if you put a plant in the ground, it can do that exchange with bacteria right in the soil. Unfortunately, we've wiped out all the bacteria in our soil because of just planting crops over and over again to the point we've wiped them out. That's why plants used to have a significant amount of vitamin B12 in it because it was being exchanged at the roots. Now, because of modern farming practices, we don't see B12 in the plants. In wild plants, you can actually see significant amounts of B12, enough to actually sustain life on. But we're not eating wild plants anymore. We're eating cultivated plants. So this idea that vegans can't get B12, it's because we've taken our food out of its natural environment. Food that is grown, plants that are grown in soil rich with fungal and bacteria activity exchange these nutrients, and the B12 would be naturally occurring in the plants, and we could get all the B12 we want from our plants. We're not living like nature. Same reason for vitamin D3. We would be living outdoors normally, just like every other animal on the planet, getting sun exposure, which increases our D3. Now we've moved indoors, we're not getting additional sunlight, so it might be appropriate for people to take or find some other sources of vitamin D3. Obviously, D3 is in animals because they're outdoors getting sunlight. So you can eat the animal, unfortunately, to get that D3, or you can go out and get the sun yourself, or simply take D3 from a supplemental source.
And since you're speaking about D3, I will just like to jump on the subject because there is also a big controversy about measuring vitamin D in the blood, since it's a fat-soluble vitamin. I will say vitamin. It's not really a vitamin, but that's another subject. It will just disappear in the fat cells, my understanding, right? So the thing that we are measuring in the blood, how reliable is it? I know it's out of the subject, but
I agree. We need to update our measurement systems. The same with ALA conversion to DHA. Right now, we're measuring ALA converting to DHA in the blood, and it's only about 1% conversion. So the assumption from this omega-3 blood test, which if you go into any doctor, they're going to measure the amount of DHA in your blood. Well, vegans will have very low DHA in their red blood cells because that's not where ALA converts to DHA. It converts to DHA in the liver to a form called LPC DHA, which then can be absorbed and utilized by the brain. Oh, sorry.
And I will make, no problem. It's an absolutely great trailer because our next meeting is going to be about omega-3 on the 19th of February. So I know Geoff has just made you really, really curious. So just jump in on the 19th because, like otherwise we're just going to talk the whole night. I have nothing against it, but my audience needs just focused information because otherwise they're just going to explode. So, okay, so we're going to have plenty of time. On the 19th of February is the next appointment we have, you and me, to speak about omega-3 and all this supplementation question. So I suggest we keep this for in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Perfect. So you gave us the 3 practical tips to get started. Due to your experience, what are some common mistakes that people make when they transition to a plant-based diet for fitness and muscle building?
Yeah, so some of the things that people say, oh, I tried a plant-based diet and I felt terrible. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. And they're like, what? Okay, so let's understand the difference between symptoms of change and healing, which is what's going on in your body. All right, if you're eating a bad diet and you keep eating a bad diet of animal products, the body is going to stop responding to the bad diet because it has to focus its energy on healing or repairing the damage you're doing from that diet. Now, when you change the diet abruptly, and now you're putting in plants, better, healthier materials, the body says, all right, now we can start cleaning and repairing everything. So it starts breaking down stuff to get it out. Now, when it breaks down these toxins, all right, so when the body has toxins and it can't get them out of the body fast enough through the liver, through the urine, through feces, through the skin, the body will say, I can't get rid of these toxins fast enough. Let's surround them with fat and water, and then we'll stick them in the body for right now and get back to them later when we can handle it. Because the body won't intentionally overload the liver, the detoxifying organ for the body, by doing that. So it stores toxins in fat. Now, when you start eating healthier, the body says, all right, we can start breaking down all that fat, but it's going to release those toxins back into the bloodstream. So a couple trips around the circulatory system for the liver to screen them all out and flush them out through the urine. Okay, so during this process, you can get brain fog, which is these toxins actually circulating right through your brain. You can get headaches, you can get nausea feeling. The body will even dump some of those toxins back into your stomach to try to get rid of them through your digestive tract. Now, this can make you feel a little nauseous or lose your appetite a little bit. These are good things. These are the body healing itself. What you need to do is drink more water and eat more water-heavy foods, like, fleshy fruits. Watermelon's great for that. Juicing is another good thing that can help wash these toxins out of the body. So you may get tired. Good, that's awesome. That's your body saying, all right, I'm going to convert some of your physical energy, the energy that we think we feel is energy. I'm going to convert that energy into healing energy and repairing the body. So it shifts your energy supply to actually fixing the cells, healing the cells, tearing down bad cells and getting rid of them. So this process can pull energy away from your physical body. So instead of like drinking caffeine or something to try to get your energy back, actually do the opposite. Rest into it. Sleep more. Get a little bit extra hour sleep per day. Give your body some extra rest. That's the way you can let your body heal itself faster. Now, the body will do this in cycles. It will do it for a phase and then say, okay, wait, that's enough. Let's clear out this mess first and let you heal and repair back. And then it'll go through another phase of cleansing and healing the body. So for some people who are very toxic, they're going to feel awful sometimes. You're going to lose muscle because the body is breaking down damaged proteins in your muscle. Let's get rid of them and replace them with fresh, new, healthy, strong muscle cells. So you're going to lose some weight, you're going to lose some muscle, you're going to lose some strength, you're going to feel tired, you may feel nauseous. This is going to be more pronounced in people who are really unhealthy. But the more unhealthy you are, the more these symptoms of healing are going to be present. If you're pretty healthy already, you may not even feel these. The body will adjust naturally and gradually. But don't be afraid of these initial symptoms. Don't say, oh, I felt terrible when I went to a plant-based diet. No, that is your body healing itself. Understand that that's the process. Like I was talking to Suzanne in the beginning, I asked the universe for a flower and it rained. Okay, that's the process to get the flowers to grow. Understand that there's a process to the healing. When you make a change, our body has to make a change. And look, doing 40, 50 years worth of damage and then trying to change is not going to happen overnight. It takes a lot for your body to heal and repair and correct and rebalance itself. Give the body a chance to do that, and you're going to feel more energy, better lower body fat, more strength, more muscle, better skin health, everything. I mean, people look at my skin and go, oh, wow, you're 62. You don't even have any wrinkles. That's the power of plants. That's what it can do for you if you give it the chance to heal.
Yes, you said it. And wrinkles has a lot to do with Maillard reaction, the reaction that happens with protein and sugar. So if you animal protein and sugar. So if you avoid this, you avoid your wrinkles and you don't have to pay lots of money for anti-wrinkle cream.
Exactly.
Perfect. One last question from my side, and then I will pick up the questions from the commentary comments field. So you said that 60 grams of protein a day for someone who is like at a healthy weight, right? Because I have lots of clients who tell me, well, I am 120 kilos, which is how many pounds? 180 pounds? Okay, is it possible?
It's 2.2 pounds per kilo.
Okay, yeah, so, well, more. But someone who is overweight who tells me, well, I calculated the amount of protein I need, and I need so much protein, I'll never get it with normal food. And then I tell him, well, you should calculate the number of protein you need at a healthy weight, not at the overweight weight. So you said 60, let it be 80 grams of protein, like as an average, that it's enough even to be active and to build muscles. So I used to practice at home with my body weight, and then I noticed, okay, now it's not really enough anymore. It's not intense anymore. So I subscribed at a fitness studio, which I really need, like, it's okay because I go at hours where it's not very full. So we don't have all these bodybuilding people who just look at them in the mirror with like pumping iron just to say, hey, I'm here. But still, when I'm finished with my training at a fitness studio, there is a little entry and a bar. And of course, they sell and serve protein shakes as an argument, saying, well, directly after you've trained, it's so important that you refill your protein. And I'm fighting with them and I tell them, no, it's so important you refill your carbs because your body needs energy to repair your muscle and to build your muscles. And they really don't want to listen. So what is your insight on it?
Oh, totally, 100%. So all of the serious research on protein and athletics shows that timing of protein ingestion has no bearing on the outcomes of muscle performance, muscle gains, or muscle strength at all. The amount of total daily intake is the only thing that they found is significant. Yes, if you're not meeting your total daily intake in a 24-hour period, you can have some changes. But other than that, when you consume that protein, so they did an interesting thing. I have a friend named Amin. He is a world record holding weightlifting athlete. He eats one time a day. He eats once a day. And he gets all of his protein in that one meal. So all of the rest of the day, he lets his body rest, which allows for something called autophagy. Autophagy is our body creates cells, and not every cell is made right. So our body says, okay, these cells aren't very functional, or they get damaged and beyond repair, and our body has to break down these cells and get rid of them. If we don't break them down, we create a scenario called senescence. Senescence is like you eat food, but you leave the packaging all around your living room all day, and then you keep doing that every day, and your house becomes a giant garbage dump. And that's exactly what's happening on a cellular level. If you don't take out the garbage, as well as creating the new cells, then you're going to end up with a lot of garbage, senescence, in your cells. And you have to let your body rest, which is called autophagy, to help the body remove or take out the damaged protein cells.
Perfect. Thank you. So I switched to the comments, and there is one question specific to omega-3, but I just responded that we're going to dive into it on the 19th of February. So Ulrike, alle Informationen in 2 Wochen, everything you need to know in 2 weeks. Another question is a little bit out of the subject, but because you mentioned also animal fats, Suzanne and Thomas want to know if animal fat are as good or as bad for the body as plant fat.
Okay. Getting into the fat question, we'll probably talk about a little bit more on the deep dive into PUFAs. PUFAs are polyunsaturated fats. And so plant fats are generally more in the liquid state. I mean, they're liquid at room temperature. That's why we call them oils. Oil is just another name for polyunsaturated fat or monounsaturated fats. So saturated fats are solid at room temperature because they're saturated with the molecules and particularly hydrogen. Okay, I don't want to get too much into the science here, but basically I'll answer it in a nutshell that saturated fats can do a lot of negative things in the body. Now, it is possible to actually get some saturated fats from plants as well, like coconut or avocados. But generally, we're not consuming that on a regular basis like we would consuming an animal-based meal for breakfast, an animal-based meal for lunch, an animal-based meal for dinner. You're getting that constant stream of saturated fat. Having it every once in a while, like a little bit of avocado on your salad, is a way different impact on the body than the animals ones. Now, we also see an interesting study on MUFAs, which is monounsaturated fatty acids. So they looked at MUFAs and they saw MUFAs have a positive effect. But then another study said MUFAs had a negative effect. And they're like, well, which is it? Are they a positive effect or negative effect? So they teased it out and they found out that the MUFAs from plants were having a positive effect, but the same monounsaturated fats from animals were having a negative health impact. Why is that? It's because they don't come packaged by themselves. They come packaged with a whole bunch of different other things. The monounsaturated fats, you're consuming polyphenols, which help metabolize those fats. You're consuming antioxidants, which protect those fats from oxidation. When you're consuming animal monounsaturated fats, you don't have those antioxidants. You don't have those polyphenols. You don't have the fiber. It's not just the fats themselves, it's what they're packaged with in their whole food state. That's the important part. When we look at studies isolating these nutrients, we have to say, okay, well, that's good information, but let's look at it as we would naturally consume them in their whole food state. Then how do they affect the body? And look at those outcomes, and you may find those outcomes are very different than when they are in their isolated states.
Yes, that's perfectly well said. Thank you so much. Another question is, a very interesting question as well. Renate is asking if it's possible when you're doing the transition to plant-based, that your liver values are getting worse for a little while. I think you already said something like this, but just, if you can repeat it.
Yeah, so what happens is you start to break down those fats that can have stored toxins in them, releasing those toxins into the bloodstream where our liver has to screen those out. Now, when the liver comes in contact to a new higher source of toxins, it's going to increase its enzymes, hepatic enzymes. Those enzymes help break down and detoxify those things so it can be eliminated through our urine or our waste. That's a really important process. So again, yes, you can see a plant-based diet, it increases liver enzymes. Now, in a sick person where you're eating high amounts of animal fat, you see what we call non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay, this also increases enzymes because the liver is actually being damaged trying to repair itself. The misunderstanding here is, liver enzymes going up is bad. No, it's bad when it's indicating that you actually have a disease state caused by consuming animal products. It's good when those liver enzymes are going up because your body is detoxifying. That means you're removing toxins that could damage your cells from the body. The same test results, higher enzymes, two very different things going on in the body. So we cannot take these results and say, increasing liver enzymes is bad. No, in certain cases, it's actually very, very good and very health promoting. In other cases, yes, it's bad. It could be telling you you're about to die by having liver failure. same test results, very different outcomes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. That was very, very important to be said. How would you react if someone who is doing the transition is getting his LDL better, his cholesterol better, but the triglyceride are just finding above the the roof? Have you seen that already?
Yes. So consuming a high fiber diet can help with that. Obviously, triglycerides combine in the digestive tract to help them lower. The body, when it's going through a process of breaking down fatty acids, will produce triglycerides. Okay, so this is a natural process. When you look at is is there a spike in triglycerides after a meal? Is there a spike in triglycerides after you consume or after you exercise? Yes. You can take anybody, regardless of their diet, and put them through vigorous exercise, and you'll see higher triglycerides in their bloodstream because the body's breaking down fat and it forms them into triglycerides so that our cells can pick them up and use them to make energy. Now, what you don't want is high triglycerides hanging out in your bloodstream. So why do triglycerides not get into the muscle cells? When you exercise, you actually pull them out of the bloodstream. So you will see an initial spike in triglycerides until the muscle cells actually pull them into it. Now, when you eat a high fatty diet and it goes into your bloodstream, the body is breaking it down to triglycerides, but you're not exercising because you're sedentary, so the body has no demand for those triglycerides. Now you got them just swimming around the bloodstream. This is where they become a problem. So consuming less fat in your diet, eating a lower fat can help. Consuming less processed or isolated carbohydrates can help lower your triglycerides. And most importantly, exercise can help lower your cholesterol and triglycerides. So this is really important, but also a high fiber diet. You combine those things, you will over time see improvements in your triglyceride levels.
Yes.
Unless, of course, you have a genetic situation going on. And there are those people that might need specific attention or treatment, maybe even drugs to help
Absolutely.
control that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to finish on the triglyceride, is it right if I say, okay, so also because, like we are following an Esselstyn diet, so we focus on Leinsamen in English, the thing you put on your porridge to get your omega-3. Tell
Flax?
me. No, nuts or the little brown seeds.
Oh, chia.
No, not chia, the one you have to ground.
Chia and flax are the two that you,
Flaxseed,
yeah,
flaxseed.
flax,
Thank you,
yes.
my brain. So we focus on flaxseed because there is no risk on overeating flaxseed. So could a high triglyceride value also be due because we consume too many avocados, nuts, white pasta or bread? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yes, simple or isolated carbohydrates, when they're processed, they enter into the bloodstream too quickly and can elevate and sustain the elevation of it. Same with heavy amounts of fats. So just lowering the fats, increasing the fiber, which obviously from whole foods, and increasing your exercise. If you do those things, you can help bring those back into normal levels. But give it time. The body has to adjust and has to correct. And sometimes it's really out of whack and can take a little bit to get it corrected.
Wow.
Consistency, remember?
Absolutely. One step at a time. My dad used to say, not faster than the music.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Geoff. I will just look at the comment, but I think I covered everything. Renate says, thank you for the answer about the liver values because her physician was thinking she was sick.
Yeah, so here's another thing that physicians focus on too. If you ever get your white blood cells checked, it's called leukocytosis. or your leukocytes. These are white immune cells, right? Okay, so I hear this all the time when, especially longer-term vegans, people who've been whole food plant-based for a couple of years, and the doctor goes in and says, your white blood cell count is too low. You have a really bad immune system. And I'm like, no. So they're so used to seeing people on a standard American diet, eating high animal products, high processed foods, with their white blood cell count up. What are white blood cells? They're garbage men for the bloodstream. They basically go up in response to garbage in our blood vessels and our bloodstream. So the higher the white blood cell count, the higher the garbage amounts in your system. If you don't have any garbage men, it's because you don't have any garbage in your bloodstream. But they are so used to seeing leukocytes at a high level, they think that's normal. It's not normal. It's average, but it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So they say, oh, your white blood cell count is too low. No, there isn't such a thing unless you have a rare disorder. You can get your response checked by actually putting something into your bloodstream to see how well your body responds with white blood cells. That is an important test to have in case you do have very, very low white blood cells. But having a consistently low white blood cells is usually meaning your bloodstream's nice and clean. You don't need garbage men.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a very good friend of mine who is a plant-based osteopath says everything that is common is not obligatory normal. It's not because it's common that it's normal. And it's like the same for, like back pain, high blood pressure, being older, and so many things. Okay. Does anybody from the audience have any other question? Habt ihr noch Fragen, meine Lieben? You talked about the white blood cell. Do you know anything about the red blood cells count and quality on a plant-based diet?
Yeah, so generally what we see in people going on a healthy whole food plant-based diet, not just vegan, because obviously vegans can eat junk food and highly processed food, which could not be a good thing too. So when I talk about plant-based, I'm talking about a predominantly whole food plant-based diet. So we see what's called in the athletic sphere for performance, how well your red blood cells carry oxygen. It's called VO2 max. That's our ability to get oxygen to our muscles, also to our brain, better. And we see in study after study after study that consuming a high plant-based diet will increase VO2 max, will increase our red blood cell count, but also will increase the efficacy of our red blood cells to carry nutrients and oxygen. And that's, I think, even more important, not just the count per se. A count is important, but different people can have different counts, and having a low count may not be technically all that bad for a specific individual. It may actually be good for them because they could have been a lot lower than that. So they may be in their normal range, even though there is a generally considered normal range for red blood cell count. Looking about how efficient the red blood cells are at doing what they're designed to do, which is carry nutrients and oxygen and glucose to the rest of the body.
Perfect. And I just looked down at my paper, and I will just take 5 more minutes of your time if you agree. Because lots of people who say, well, beans and things, there is this high dangerous proteins that's called lectins.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Gundry. Okay, so where did this...
And it will kill you. It will kill you.
It will kill you, exactly. Okay, so yes, let's start right from the truth where he got this idea. There was a case where somebody was eating white kidney beans in their raw state and got lectin poisoning. Oh. Now, who on earth is eating raw white kidney beans? Why would you do that? um, they have a very high, as soon as you cook the white kidney beans, the lectins almost are nil. Okay. There are still lectins in other things besides beans. Beans happen to be one of the best sources of it. Okay. If beans were actually killing people, when we look at the blue zones, which are the highest concentrations of centenarians, people who live to 100 years or longer, the number one common food in all of the blue zones is a high intake of beans. If they were actually killing you, we wouldn't have human beings in the highest concentrations living to 100 years of age. They're doing just the opposite. Okay, what is a lectin? A lectin is actually bound to a carbohydrate. And when it goes into our system, our body can take this lectin bound to a carbohydrate and feed it to a cancer cell, causing the cancer cell to explode. That's called apoptosis. It can actually use plant lectins that it pulls in from the digestive tract to kill and destroy cancer cells. It's so effective at doing that, there's actually drug companies that are attaching their drug to these lectin carbohydrate compounds so that our body delivers the drug specifically to the cancer cell. So pharmaceutical companies are using plant-based lectins to deliver directly to cancer cells their drugs. So it's so cool that our body so depends on lectins to control the growth and destroy cancer cells in so effective manner that if we don't get enough lectins from plants, our body will mimic what the plants do and produce our own lectins. That's right. Our body, just like other animals, will create lectins to use to kill cancer cells if we're not getting enough from the plants. So this whole idea that lectins are killing you, no, they're doing just the opposite. They're killing cancer cells and keeping you alive. God, how far we get away from that. And again, it's based on one sliver of truth, which, yes, eating raw white kidney beans could kill you from lectin poisoning. Don't do that. But getting plant lectins in small dosages like we would see in our cooked foods or even raw fruits and vegetables, those are actually helpful to keep us alive, not kill us.
Thank you. Thank you, Geoff. That was so important. Perfect. My gosh, I could go forever, but it's 9:30 here in Germany. So thank you so much, Geoff, for all this really good insight on this protein subject and more. And I can't wait to be the 19th of February to learn even more on omega-3 and fats. So for all people who are listening or listening to the recording, just be there on the 19th. It's going to be just eyes opening. And once again, thank you so much for taking so much time to teach us so many important things and for your passion of giving back. Yeah, I can say enough. Then thank you. I really appreciate.
My pleasure. And thank you all for attending. And please feel free to share this information with other people, because the more we can get people eating foods that support life and support our health, the better. I'm 62 years of age. I lost my mother, my father, and both brothers before they even reached 60. I wish I had this information to give them so they could still be here today. I want to share this information with other people, so maybe you get to keep your loved ones around longer and see them in good health and not suffer from debilitating diseases. That's why I've committed the rest of my life to doing this. Why I've been doing it for 40 years is because suffering sucks, and watching a loved one suffer sucks even worse, in my opinion. I watched every single one of my family members die and suffer, and I don't want that for anybody else. It's why I do what I do. So I'm grateful to Suzanne for giving me a platform to talk about this, and for all her focus on helping other people get healthy and heal their bodies by using plants, and the wonderful fungi kingdom too as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I wish you a beautiful afternoon in Florida. Enjoy the sun for us. And see you in 2 weeks. Vielen Dank an
Tschüss.
alle. Tschüss.